Adash Guruji.
This.
Here we are today, continuing our series of the art of dying, looking at the Gorakh Sabadī, the sayings of Gorakhnath, and you've chosen verse number 286 to discuss today.
True. So we begin with this verse as usual. I try to sing it to the best of my ability. So this one is verse 286, and it is a lovely verse. It's very beautiful, and we are also trying to break it down for every one of you who are watching. So mūla, agochara, kaṇṭhagaha, pavanā, khelai, chau, saṭhi, sadha, gagana, maṇḍala, anahada, bājãĩ, piṇḍa, parai, sadaguru, piṇḍa, parai, sadaguru, piṇḍa, parai, sadaguru, the imperceptible, rooted, bound at the throne, the bright flame to the imperceptible, rooted, bound at the throne, the bright place to the 64. In the celestial realm of the head, unstruck sound resonate. If the body falls, than the true Guru. Won't be ashamed if the body falls, than the true Guru will be the same. If the body falls, then the true Guru will be the same. Thank you.
Beautiful. So, verse 286. This verse provides a profound esoteric look into the mechanics of Hatha Yoga and Kundalini awakening. And again, Gorakhnath is using Sandhya Bhasa, yogic terminology, to describe the physiological and spiritual transformation that the yogi undergoes when the life force, prana, is perfectly challenged into the celestial realm of the head in a deep state of meditation. So the vocabulary is closely connected to Kundalini, Prana, the 64 yoga junctions, the inner sky, and the Anahata Nada. And it also continues this kind of interior yogic language that we've been exploring in the Gorakh Sabadī. And it's interesting because Gorakh is credited with inventing, what we know as the anatomy of the subtle energy body. And so this Sabadī reveals the internal alchemy practiced by Nath Yogis.
Very true, because the verse here is related to the understanding of the prana, right, and how to achieve this particular state. Mm-hmm. So again in this verse 286, Gorakh is talking about the root in the beginning, mūla, right, the root. So what is the root, right? So he is trying to explain the root cannot be perceived by our senses, right? It is beyond the perception of our senses, right? So it's beyond it, right? The prana that is produced from the root, right? The root being the base there. So that is how the prana is, taken internally, preserved, right? It is trapped, preserved, and then used by the body to enhance the awakening of the nadis, right? And that leads us to understanding the consciousness and the hearing of the unstruck sound, which is termed as the anahada, right? That is the nath meaning the sound, the anahada meaning unstruck. So, and then only the yogi will realize the deathless reality, right? The deathless state, the innate being, the inner man, the inner spirit, the true guru. So Gorakhnath here directs us to this, right? And here you can see this verse is also very much related with the other verses of the Gorakh Sabadī, the one we already have discussed before, right? That's verse number 26. So in that verse you can see it says, "Die, O yogi, die." Right? Death is sweet. Right? Die that particular death that Gorakh himself had died, and then he had seen the reality. So you can see the connection here in this 8 to 6 verse, right? So here also the verse explains in the same way, but in a different manner, right? Here the verse relates to understanding the inner sky, right? Meaning the skull, right? And then understanding our true nature, right? Achieving the sahaj.
Okay, so then if I'm going to summarize this, basically the invisible, imperceptible mūla, the root, is held at the throat, with jalandhara bandha, and the breath moves and plays through the 64 inner junctions, or yoginis, and within the sky, the Anahata Nada resounds. And if the body dies a physical death before this realization is complete, then the guru's teaching has been betrayed.
Very true. So that is how the line also, the first beginning only tells us the mūla, agochara, right? kaṇṭhagaha, bandha. So that's what the first line is saying. Right? So here, the understanding of this verse depends on understanding the true meaning of the words that have been used here, right, in the Sandhya Bhasa. So mūla, mostly people still, when they hear the word mūla, they straight away relate it to the Mūladhara chakra. But here it is not only the Mūladhara chakra, right? Mūla has many other definitions, right? It is the foundation, it is the ground, right? The origin, the source. That is what Gorakh is talking about here, mūla, the source, right? And then he says, mūla agochara, right? He uses the word here again, agochara, right? So we talked about this also before, agochara. So here he's saying that mūla, right, which cannot be perceived by the senses, is agochara, right? Agochara meaning it is unknown, it cannot be grasped, right? It cannot be taken into custody, it cannot be trapped, right? It is agochara, right? It is out, beyond the senses. So that's what he's saying, this mūla, right? That is the source, right? The source of this beautiful energy, right? Which surrounds us, the energy that is emanating from the earth, the energy that is pouring down the cosmic energy into our body from the sky. So all this is, so much of a reality. It is scientific, right? And here Gorakh says about mūla, that is, the mūla is the source, the foundation, right? If the foundation is strong, then everything that rests on that foundation will last forever. So that's why he's emphasizing this here, saying mūla agochara. Then he goes on to say kaṇṭhagaha bandha, right? He's saying, okay, stop that energy. It's passing through you, right? Trap it. How to trap it? Right? Lock it up at the throat. Right at the throat, lock it up. So here the throat becomes important again, right? Why? Because it is the Vishuddhi chakra of the 7 chakras, right? So that's why it's important there. So when we lock this chakra, that means we trap the energy inside our body. So that's what he's saying. Mūla agochara kaṇṭhagaha bandha. Bandha meaning trap it, right? Close it, seal it, right? So these are the seals that Gorakhnath is emphasizing on to capture this energy so that this energy becomes beneficial for uplifting our spiritual health, right? All the nadis open. So this is what this particular verse is telling us, right? So that's what he says. By doing the bandha, then which is known as you said, jalandhar bandha, right? Then it contains the energy, right? And then directs the energy inward. We are not letting this energy pass out, right? So we are taking it inward. And that when it is directed inward, then it helps the prana, vayu, the essential chi, right, to move in the upward direction towards the head. Upward direction meaning towards the head, going up, right? So that is how Gorakh is describing this. And he's also giving you the means, the boat by which you can reach this.
Okay, so this ultimate source of divine energy, mūla, essentially comes from the earth, and it just effortlessly flows upwards. And I mean, in the tantric world, everything is considered to be energy, and I think the term spanda is used to describe it, the Shiva Shakti. And so then the yogi uses the bandha at the throat to contain and redirect this energy inwards and upwards.
Yes.
Like you mentioned, this energy can't be perceived by the ordinary senses, which is why it's termed agochara.
Yes.
And, when I've heard this, because, when you're trying to actually do this in practice, right, to say bring the ida and piṇḍa nadis into balance so the prana will rise up the central channel, I never can feel that physically. My senses can't sense it. And so this kind of explains why
Yes,
it's imperceivable.
Yes, it's impossible by the senses. Why? Because I tell you, the senses, like look at the eyes, right? Now our eyes can only see a certain spectra of the total spectrum of light energy, right? And to the other spectrum, our eyes are blind.
Yeah.
So you see how, narrow it is, our senses. And even with the ears, right? It's a proof, right? Our ears can only register, like say, 20 hertz something to 20,000 hertz something, like that only the range. So it is narrowed down. So our senses cannot and will never be able to hear the sound or perceive, right, the agochara.
Yeah.
That's it. That's how it is. So then the verse again takes us forward, right? Gorakhnath, he is taking us forward in this journey. So the next one, he says, pavanā khelai, chau, saṭhi, sadha, right? That's another beautiful line here. Right? It explains everything, right? It kills, it kills the superstition that is behind so many things, right? And one of them, we are exposing it right now, right? So here, in this line, it says, pavanā khelai, chau, saṭhi, sadha. So pavan meaning wind, the breath, right? The pavan, that is the vayu, right? And we have the vayus inside our body, right? And different parts, it's circulating in different directions. That's what keeps us alive. So that's what he's talking about, pavan, right? That is the vayu. And then, which is actually, the pavan is also, regarded as the praṇa vayu, when it is inside. Outside, it is just vayu. But when it is inside, it becomes the prana, right? Prana.
So you mean so it's also breath?
Yes. So there you see, the breath is the prana. You lose your breath, you are no more, right?
Yes, breath is life.
Yes. So there, that's what he is talking about, right? The distinction, so here you can see in breath, when we talk about breath, then there is one thing that we have to clearly understand, right? One type of breath, one level of breath is physical, right? Which involves inhalation, exhalation, right? And even Rachak may be stopping it. So all these are physical, right? That is breathing. Right? Now the next level of breath that Gorakh is talking about here is the yogi, right? Is talking about the breath that is inside us. And we term it as prana, the life force. Right? So the yogi is more interested in the life force. Right?
Because it activates the nadis.
Because that is the importance there. That is what you have to watch, right? And that is what is going to work for you. So that is what he's trying to explain here about pavan, right? The wind. And he says, pavanā khelai, right? Khelai is such a beautiful word he uses here. He doesn't say like it comes, it's going, or it's being drained, or being pushed, or pulled. No. He just says khelai. Khelai means play, joyfully, right? Playing with freedom, so much. So that's how he says khelai. That's why he uses this word khelai here, right? Moves freely, right? And what moves? That is the vayu, right? And when it is trapped, right? When it is trapped, then it moves freely. Where does it move? Right? And again he says, where? Then the chau, saṭhi, sadha. Chau, saṭhi is simply meaning 64, right? And what is sadha? Sadhas are connections, crossroads, right? And those crossroads, the point where all the nadis cross each other in our body, right? There are 54 junctions. And that is the meaning of 64 yoginis, right? Which is symbolically represented as 64 yoginis. But there are no 64 yoginis existing in the basti, it is inside us, right? All the 64 junctions. So that's what he's saying. The wind, the praṇa, vayu, it's so beautifully like it plays, right, in the 64 junctions or the inner chakras that the whole body is enveloped in. So it also signifies another meaning, right? It includes the whole body when we say 64 yoginis or the 64 junctions, right? So this is what it is here, the pavanā khelai, right? So beautifully Gorakhnath, he describes that, right? So the perception of the yogi here is the prana, right? That is the breath which goes inside, right, and becomes the living force for us, right? That is prana, right? And the prana passes through all the connections, the nadis, right? Supposed to be 72,000 of them, right? And then it passes these, the prana, vayu, right? It plays and passes through all these 64 junctions. That's what he is saying here, right? And when this happens, right? When this happens, then we come to the realization of the inner sky, right? Because we are going inside, right? And inside the inner sky we have, that is the skull. That's what it's meaning, right? Then it reaches the skull.
And the sahasrara.
Yes, obviously the sahasrara is there in the skull. So that is what it does. And then obviously that creates, that's the wrong word to use here. It uncovers, it unveils the innate nature, the consciousness, the inner man, the inner being, right? The inner guru, then you'll be able to see that. And once you see that, that is, you have heard the eternal sound, unstruck sound, yes, right? So you have heard that sound. So this is actually what it means here. Right?
Wow, so such beautiful yogic poetry. And the whole body is transformed into a cosmic playground of prana.
Beautifully. There he goes on to say it's inward, right? So he talks about the universe here, right? So he has the universe, the outside universe, the macrocosm, right? That's how we term it. And then we have the inside universe, which is very much similar to the macrocosm, which we term it microcosm. Right. So here Gorakhnath is interested in the microcosm, not the macrocosm. Right? So he's saying go inward, and then there is the universe. Right? And in that universe you must, right, find the inner sky, and then you will hear the sound of the Nath. Right? And that sound is the eternal sound. It is unstruck melody.
Yeah.
It vibrates through the skull and throughout our body. So that is what he is saying here, right? So the body here is not disregarded by the Nath Yogis, the body is preserved, body is looked after. Why? Because the body is the vehicle there, right? If the body, it represents the whole universe. It's inside us, right? So that's why we can understand this verse in this relation to the cosmic universe,
right?
That is inside and outside.
I just wanted to go back to this idea of the 64 yoginis again, which in traditional tantra and siddha philosophy these 64 junctions are symbolized as the 64 yoginis.
Yes.
And, you know, it's not physical anatomy like you mentioned, but they're subtle energy centers, pulsations coming from these intersections or the chakras within the energetic body. And so, you know, Tantra states that the whole body is a living mandala, and it's
Very
kind of a yogini peat, and the whole subtle body becomes a temple.
Yes.
And I think, yeah, it's really important, this view of the body in Tantra. So anyway, when this happens, you know, when these 64 junctions are sort of activated, you know, the entire body, there's cellular saturation of energy, even in the physical body. And so the verse itself moves, you know, from the prana to the junctions and then into the gagana mandala of the sahasrara chakra to the anahata nada.
Yes.
And, you know, it's really beautiful. So we go from the gross physical body into the subtle physiology, into cosmos.
Yes.
I mean, into the
reality.
the consciousness and
Yes.
cosmic reality.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's very right. It's true. That's what happens. That's what Gorakh is also trying to explain to us through this verse, right? And there we come in connection with that. We come to the third line of the verse, which says the gagana mandal, right? Gagana mandal me anahada bājãĩ. So again, there we come to the anahad sound, right? And the gagana mandal. So here Gorakh is saying this, right? Literally, if we look at that, it just means like the sound is there in the sky, in the inner sky, right? The gagana mandal actually means the inner sky. And that is what Gorakhnath is trying to tell us, right? The sky that we see is just a symbol, right? The real sky is the inner sky. And the inner sky meaning the gagana mandal, again, you know, the Sandhya Bhasa, you know, gagana mandal. But the inner meaning means skull, right? That is the gagana mandal that we have.
And it's the same that we discussed in that verse 26, I think, of
Yes.
the summit of the sky.
Yes, the summit of the sky, again,
Yeah.
that is the skull, again, right? So that is what he is talking about here. Gagana mandal me anahada bājãĩ. So there in the gagana mandal, in the skull, then the yogi will hear that sound, that eternal sound, the anahata nada, nada meaning the sound, right? Which is unstruck, right? So that is what he is trying to explain here, right? So in the inner sky, the gagana mandal, right? There you can hear this anahada sound, right? But there is a paradox here, you know, that is in the gagana mandal, that is emptiness, sunya, right? And sunya means there's nothing there.
The void.
Yeah, it's void, that's what is the understanding, but there is a different understanding here, right? And Gorakh is saying there's a sound there, right? There's a sound in the silence.
Right.
And which is not made by striking, right? Like taking a bell and a hammer and making a sound. No, it's not that, right? So here you can see how beautifully Gorakh, even explains that. Yeah, being the emptiness, being the sunya also. But in the sunya you have the nad, right? The sound is there, and that is it looks paradoxical too. Right, because of the Sandhya Bhasa there.
So the sound is produced when these 72,000 nadis ring?
Yeah, and the ringing is caused by opening. And how? When the energy, when that vayu is trapped, right, it's locked, and then it is directed. And when it is directed towards the nadis, right, and that is where the reactions will happen. That means in the crossings where the pran vayu will dance with joy if it is open, but if it is blocked, then it cannot pass through, right? So that is how there will be blockages if there are blockages in the nadi also, then the yogi will come to know that this part of the body, something is wrong, so he can go for a cure and find a medicine for it, right? So there, that's how Gorakh is saying, like, when all the 64 nadis open and then it rings, right? That means all the 72,000 nadis open and it rings in the head.
So it's really this extraordinary relationship between prana and nada.
Yes, same thing, right? That is, the prana dissolves, right? The I in you dissolves, the guru dissolves, everything dissolves, right? Only shunya and the sound and the vibration. I mean, actually it means the vibration, right? The frequency, right?
Right.
Of the consciousnesses. It must be that.
So I'm just always trying to bring things back to practice, to the mundane,
Yep.
because this is so esoteric, right? So
Yes.
I'm just looking at the actual yogic process. So I guess the first thing that has to happen is for the yogi to feel this sense of foundation.
Yes, the mūla.
Foundation in the asana, in meditation,
Yes.
the seat, the asana
It's important.
of the mūla, right? This is what has to happen first. And then attention can turn inwards. And there's kind of a pratyahara practice, a boat of pratyahara, where the yogi begins to become more aware of the subtle network, the pranic current, the life force within the body. And, you know, through pranayama and the use of bandhas, right? And so this energy is kind of naturally in the torso, or flowing through the whole body, and then you contain it through the bandhas.
Yes, very true.
And then once you have it contained, you can redirect the flow upwards towards, you know, the head. And so this is kind of symbolic for the Kundalini rising,
Yes.
and also, you know, just for the prana to be rising up the Sushumna central nadi towards the throat chakra, and then the Sahasrara chakra. So it's all flowing upwards towards the head, the inner sky, and all the techniques or the boats of yoga have to be used. And then once the prana is kind of contained in the inner sky, we can hear this unstruck sound.
Yes.
And, you know, so that becomes perceptible in a sense. And then the non-dual process begins of the listener and the sound. The distinction between them dissolves. And, you know, as the energy ascends to the crown chakra and you hear the Anahata Nada, you know, it's like this cosmic resonance that plays without strings. And this, in fact, is the meditative doorway to Sahaj, to the deathless realization, which is the purpose, to finding, resting in the innate self.
Understanding the inner being, seeing the inner man, right? So that is the objective there. Yeah, that's very true. That's how it is, right? Because when we talk about the energy that is there, right, and which has been trapped, and then that trapped energy helps to move the prana vayu through, right? So that's what we have already discussed, and then we come to the last line. Also has a very deep meaning. So here it says, piṇḍa parai to sataguru lajai, right? And the simple meaning, the surface meaning is if the body, piṇḍa meaning the body, if the body falls, right? That is false meaning dies, then the guru will become ashamed. Right? So here the question comes, why the guru should be ashamed? What is the reason of being guru ashamed when the body falls? So here we have to understand that the guru is a guru, right? The guru understands the nature of the death, right? And here we are showing the difference between the guru and the disciple, and the disciple seems not to understand the nature of the death. Right? So here the guru becomes ashamed when the body of the disciple falls.
So when the physical body dies.
Oh, yes, because without awakening, right? Without having the inner death, without realizing the sweet death.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what the guru is becoming ashamed, because the disciple has failed his discipline, right? He has failed his discipline, and he cannot, right, achieve the sahaj, right? Because he has not followed, right, what the guru had instructed him. So in the last verse, that's why piṇḍa parai to sadaguru lajai, right? So if the body falls before the real death, right, that means the body falls, meaning that is the second death, that is the death of the body only, right? But the person who has not died to the world, has not experienced the yogi who has not experienced the sweet death, then he will never be able to realize the sahaj. He will never hear the unstruck melody, right? So that is what the last verse is emphasizing us, is telling us about how, right? So that is how he has given him the boat, everything, right? He has told him, instructed him, but still the person is not able to follow and falls.
Well, I mean, Gorakhnath definitely set some incredibly high standards for success, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you've said to me that in your 50 years of being a yogi, you've met very few awakened beings.
Very true.
Even within the Nath Sampradaya. And so, you know, it's not easy to do this. And, you know, but basically, you know, if the seeker, if the chela doesn't listen to the guru's advice, then the body will die a physical death before the real death, the sweet death, can come to him, can be realized, right? The death of the ego.
Yes.
And so the disciple has failed by not following the instructions,
yes.
by not, providing that the guru actually is given quality instructions,
yes.
and isn't a fake like so many gurus today. Another topic. Anyway, he doesn't have the discipline required.
Yes, that is it also, and that is he flounders, right? He flounders, he loses his faith, and he has more faith in something else. Right. Then that's what happens, right? If he goes outward, right? Yeah. If he goes outward, then he will not achieve this, right? And this is what is happening to, as you told me, like there are very few saints who might have realized themselves, and most of them are not, right? That is because I've seen, you know, all over India through the Nath Sampradaya and many of this, some places, the ashrams and all, and then I have seen mostly the outward things going on, right? The pujas, the rituals, and the mantras, you know, this Nath Sampradaya is today, you know, it is enveloped by mantras and mantras and mantras, mantra for even shitting, and mantra for urinating, and mantra for walking outside, or mantra for sleeping, mantra, and it's all outside.
Yeah.
Right? It does not affect the consciousness, it does not go inward at all, right? Yeah. So this is what I've seen everywhere, you know. Only rituals are important for them, and there's no real practice, you know. And it's sad to see these things happening, really.
Yeah, because with a flawless practice,
yes,
one going internally, it should ideally lead to this idea of the immortal body, right?
Yes. The Guru
Divya Deha.
Yeah. He has already even explained this in, right? Basti na sunyam, sunyam na basti, right? It is neither the basti nor the sunyam. The yogi has to be in the basti and then realize, because the basti becomes the field of his realization, right? So that's what it is.
So the guru is ashamed.
Yes, the guru is ashamed. So we've already explained for that, right? The guru is ashamed because the chela is not able to understand the real thing, that he is not able to understand the concept of being outward and being inward, right? So that's why the person who goes outward, then he fails, right? So that's why Gorakh is so much emphasizing on it. It's kind of a challenge also, the Guru is challenging the chela, right?
Yeah.
Right? If the body fails, then I will be ashamed of you. You should not fail, right? You have to do this, right? You got to find yourself.
Can you talk a little bit about the human body being a doorway to the infinite?
Well, that's also something that we have there, right? That is, it's kind of a challenge here. So here you can see another meaning, right, or interpretation of the verse here, right? What it is teaching us about also is about the embodied, right, realization of the yogi, right? That is, the body is important for the yogi, right? The yogi has to take care of his body because the body is the field, right? That is the place where he can play and find out and realize the truth, right? That's why the yogi does not disregard his body, right? Today we find many yogis who are not concerned about their body, right? And they talk in a different way that, the Atma is the only thing and the body is nothing. Oh, well, you cannot talk like that at all, right? Because
no, like for Gorakh, the body's the laboratory, right?
Yes, it's a laboratory. He says it's a laboratory where you have to experiment, right? And if you just do not care about your body, then you have failed. Zero from the beginning, right? So that's why Gorakhnath emphasizes here. He says that the human body is a doorway to the infinity. Yeah. That's why you have to be aware of the body. Then he says the breath is the vehicle, right? The breath is the vehicle, and the field, as we talked about, the subtle body, right? The inner body is not the physical body, right?
The microcosm.
Yes, the microcosm is more important here, right? That is then realizing the inner sky. That means going on to the head, realizing that it's in the head that you have to find that eternal sound, right? That is what he calls the inner sky, right? The space that is there inside our skull, right? And that's the place where we hear the sound, right? And that sound is the signal, right? The signal that everything the universe is opening to you now, right? You are a child of the universe and we are taking you in our arms. That kind of signal it is, right? So you see how it is, right? So here we see the Guru is the path, right? The path there, the Guru shows us the path. He is a guide, right? And the death that we experience is a test. And death here means not the body death again, right? It means the sweet death. That is pratihara, right? Going through the state of pativara and realizing what the world is, what sunya is, and what you are, and where you should be, whether you should be in the sunya or in the bhasti. So all these things we have talked about before.
It's wild. It's such a radical view of the body. I love it. It's so joyful.
It is.
And, and so like in Tantra, the body becomes the vehicle to the divine. And it's quite refreshing because, for centuries prior to Tantra, like from the end of the Upanishads with Hatha Yogis going off into the forest to renunciate, the body was really considered to be a vile thing, something to be despised and controlled, and and so it got in the way of moksha. And so there was a lot of tapasyas that were very extreme, even mortification of the body, and now suddenly we have this very playful,
different,
interior,
healthy,
tantric body.
living life.
So thanks to Gorakhnath, we really ended up with a different view of the body that continues to this day with yoga, right?
It still goes on today.
Yeah.
You can see these things still happening, because as Gorakh said, all this outward thing is not going to lead you to moksha at all, right? You got to go inward, right? And for that, your body is important. It's the cosmos, it's the microcosm, and there you will find the truth if you experiment, right? so beautifully, like Gorakh, he puts it down to us, right? How we should be doing.
Yeah,
and
so
what,
like the path of the Nath Yogi is beyond the flesh, right? So we now can see that we're more than the gross physical body, more than flesh and bones. And when we go inwards to the subtle energy body of the Tantric Yogi and slay the ego, then we can rest in our pure nature that never ends, sahaj.
Yes, immortal.
Right.
You know, you achieve immortality, right?
So how do you summarize this profound and deep verse?
Yeah, so here you can see it's such a beautiful verse that we just cannot end it out, you know, like keep on going deeper and deeper, but we have to end it possibly, right, so that the time will be just right for everyone to watch. So here, as you have told me what it is, so I can say like the movement is very much, you know, remarkable here, right? That is to turn inward, to go inside, look at the inner sky, hear the sound, right? So, you know, escape duality that you are in, right? And discover that innate self, discover the inner man, right? The inner spirit, the inner guru, try to find him, right? So that is the meaning here, right? It does not mean that, right, you go and do some very difficult breathing exercises for a year or two, and then you come out and say that, oh, I have seen my inner self. That is absolutely fake. It doesn't happen. Right? Because yoga is as one. We have already seen that. We just cannot take one part and say that this, you know. So there Gorakh really describes this very beautifully here, right? And then he goes on to say, saying like, the human body is a doorway, right, through which we have to pass into that inner cosmic, you know, world where we can see ourselves, the innate self, the nature, the real nature of yourself. So there he goes on to say this, right, saying that the breath is the vehicle through which we can, right, so that is why we have the breath practice, right, and the body is the field, right, you cannot ignore it, that's where you experiment, and then the space, the inner space, the skull, yeah, that is where everything happens in the end. That is where you will be able to hear the sound, right? And that sound indicates and tells you, right, that you have seen the inner guru, right? You are ready for it, ready for the universe. The universe is going to hug you, right? So that is what he means here, right? So there, the guru is the guide, right? The external guru, right? The external guru can only show you the path. Okay, go on, right? And then you have to go through that path. Why? Because you have to meet your real guru, the inner guru, right? So it becomes a test. And yoga, after all, is the boat of achieving sahaj, reaching that mighty ship of sahaj, sahajan, you know, to be on that ship, to achieve that. So Gorakh has shown this path of yoga being the only path through which you can achieve and see your consciousness.
So is it possible to discover the deathless state while you still possess a physical body?
Yeah, that is what we have been advised to do, right? That means we got to go into practice, be aware, right? Awaken our awareness. Remove the dust from the mirror, let it shine, so that you can see your real self, right? So that is what we have to do, right? So we have seen through this, all the verses, through and through the same thing, that is cleaning the obstacles, removing the obstructions, right? And to discover ourselves, right, before we face physical death, meaning when the body rots, right, because this is just dust. So the body will go back to dust, right? So before that happens, you got to die. You got to die that sweet, beautiful death, right? Remove all the obstructions. Yeah, the false identity,
Yeah.
all the coverings that you have put on, remove it, throw it away, right? So here you can see how Gorakh emphasizes so much on this practice, right?
Adesh.
This. Thank you. It has been a beautiful talk.
As always, my pleasure.
Yes.